Everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're dissecting an absolutely brilliant display of survival strategy and psychological manipulation. We are looking at a protagonist who is completely physically outmatched, stranded in a hostile environment, and being hunted down. Yet, through sheer intellect and a really deep understanding of human nature, he manages to flip the script entirely. Whether you're navigating a high-stakes business deal or, just trying to talk your way out of a tight corner, there is a literal masterclass in leverage hidden right here in this encounter.
Picture this. You're vastly outnumbered in the freezing wilderness by these hardened mountain clansmen. The shadows have crept in, your fire has burned down to embers, and a massive guy steps into the moonlight to ask you this exact terrifying question. For most people, this is the end of the line.
So what does it take to get out of that alive? Let's dive right in and break down the incredible real-time tactics Tyrion Lannister uses to not just survive, but completely turn the tables on his attackers. And the crazy thing is, his strategy starts long before the clansmen ever step out of the shadows. It actually begins with how he manages his own side of the campfire.
Our masterclass kicks off with a stark contrast in strategy. You've got the battle-hardened sellsword Bronn on one side and the intensely calculating mind of Tyrion on the other. Bronn advocates for your classic evasion tactics: ride hard and fast, hole up by day, travel by night, make zero noise, and absolutely no fires. But Tyrion, his back is literally aching from riding since daybreak out of the Bloody Gate. He shoots Bronn's plan right down. He points out that riding fast in the dark is a great way to tumble down a mountain and crack your skull. Plus, as he jokes, if their horses die under them, they'll be trying to saddle Shadowcats next.
Tyrion understands his environment perfectly. He just sweeps a gloved hand over the high, wind-carved crags and points out that the enemy's eyes are already on them. They're going to get found no matter what. So, if they're dead men anyway, Tyrion prefers to die comfortable. He deliberately chooses to build a fire. The nights are freezing, and he'd rather risk the flames to get some hot food in his belly than break a tooth on the stale bread and hard cheese Lady Lysa so kindly gave them.
But to survive this inevitable ambush, Tyrion first has to lock in the loyalty of his only bodyguard. And to do that, he plays on the massive gap between noble ideals and mercenary realities. Tyrion points out that honorable folks like the Starks, they look for courage, loyalty, and honor. But let's be real, Bronn is, in Tyrion's own words, low-born scum. A Stark might hand over a coin with a polite word and a look of absolute distaste, but sellswords operate on a totally different wavelength. They do things for gold.
Bronn is ruthlessly pragmatic. I mean, as they sit there by the fire, the reality of who Tyrion is dealing with becomes super clear. Bronn literally just executed his own wounded traveling companion, Chiggin, driving a dirk under his ear just because the man's moaning was going to attract enemies. Bronn states it flatly to Tyrion: "I fought for you, but I do not love you." And Tyrion's response is just as cold: "It was your blade I needed, not your love." It makes their alliance 100% transactional.
This brilliantly highlights Tyrion's psychological genius. He didn't try to buy Bronn's sword with honor or duty because he knows Bronn doesn't care about any of that. He admits he basically tossed the dice back at the end. He bet that since Bronn had no lord and precious little honor, his best interest lay with the one thing the Lannisters have plenty of: massive wealth.
So Tyrion secures his immediate safety with a total masterstroke of mercenary management. When Bronn asks what happens if Tyrion dies, Tyrion just grins. He tells him he'll have at least one mourner whose grief is entirely sincere, because the gold ends when he does. By linking his own continued heartbeat directly to Bronn's paycheck, Tyrion effectively turns a potential backstabber into a fiercely motivated protector.
Now that brings us to the famous Lannister catchphrase, which actually serves a dual purpose here. It's both Tyrion's weapon and his core motivation. On one hand, it's a literal transaction, paying for loyalty. But on the other hand, it's a really dark promise of brutal vengeance for past wrongs. And to understand what's fueling Tyrion's intense drive to survive the night, we have to understand the debt he owes his own father.
Staring into the fire, Tyrion recounts his deepest trauma. At 13, he rescued a girl named Tysha and secretly married her. But when his father, Lord Tywin, found out, he brutally shattered the whole thing. Tywin claimed it was a setup by Tyrion's brother and that Tysha was a prostitute. To drive this horrific lesson home, Tywin gave the girl over to his guards, making Tyrion watch as she was paid a silver coin by every single man. Finally, Tywin forced Tyrion to go last and pay her with a gold coin simply because he was a Lannister.
This horrific story just hangs heavy in the freezing air. Even a cold-blooded killer like Bronn is deeply disturbed by it. Bronn's reaction perfectly validates the debt of vengeance Tyrion owes his own family. It gives Tyrion this massive psychological anchor. He isn't just surviving to live, he is surviving to one day pay back the father who inflicted this unimaginable cruelty on him. But suddenly, the relaxed pacing of their campfire chat totally shatters. Tyrion had managed to catch some sleep, actually dreaming of taking a strap to his father, when Bronn wakes him with a low, urgent warning. The fire has burned down to embers. The darkness is creeping in. The ambush Tyrion knew was coming is finally here.
The reality they wake up to is incredibly bleak. They're outnumbered 10-1 and totally surrounded by the Stone Crows. You've got the chief, Gunthor, the massive, dual-wielding Shagga, and a dozen others waving stolen swords and pitchforks. Bronn springs to his feet, ready to fight. But let's be real, physical force is absolutely off the table at this point.
So what does Tyrion do? He sharply orders Bronn to stand down. Instead of drawing a weapon, panicking, or begging for his life, Tyrion kicks off his negotiation strategy with a shockingly calm demeanor. He offers a completely disarming and polite welcome. He literally treats these heavily armed ambushers like they are late guests arriving at a dinner party.
Okay, let's break down the actual strategy and see how this builds in real time as Tyrion negotiates for his life. We just saw step 1, disarming with unexpected hospitality. But as the clansmen make their violent threats very clear, Tyrion has to rapidly escalate through his playbook to find the exact leverage he needs to stop them from just slaughtering him and Bronn on the spot.
Step 1 involves immediate misdirection. When the clansmen aggressively claim the goat roasting on the spit is theirs, Tyrion doesn't argue. Instead, he casually offers to pay for it with silver. He even points out that his large armor would fit one of them nicely. He's actively trying to shift the entire context of the encounter. He wants to turn a bloody execution into a simple, logical transaction.
But Gunthor is no fool. He immediately points out the massive flaw in Tyrion's opening bid. All of Tyrion's immediate goods, the silver, the armor, the battle axe, the horses, they already belong to the ambushers by right of superior force. As Gunthor brutally reminds him, Tyrion and Bronn have absolutely nothing to give them but their lives.
Realizing the physical stuff in his pockets is completely useless, Tyrion quickly pivots to step 2. He attempts to leverage his family's vast, abstract wealth back in Casterly Rock. He invokes his powerful house, promising that his Lord Father will absolutely shower them with gold if they provide safe passage.
But wow, this fails too. Gunthor completely rejects this abstract wealth, pointing out that gold means absolutely nothing in their harsh mountain reality. You can't eat gold. Mothers are going hungry up there. For the Stone Crows, steel is the only currency that actually matters. Steel to hunt with and steel to fight with. Tyrion realizes he has to dig way deeper into their psychology.
And right here, we see a beautiful piece of dramatic irony playing out by the embers of the fire. The giant Shagga roars with laughter, mocks Tyrion's size, and literally threatens to chop off his manhood to feed to the goats. The mountain clans feel entirely in control because of their physical dominance, but they are completely blind to the fact that Tyrion is intellectually cornering them, systematically probing for their weak points.
Even with a spear poked directly at his face, Tyrion doesn't flinch. Actually, he goes on the offensive. He brazenly insults their crude wooden weapons and farm tools. He hits their absolute deepest pain point, their lack of proper armament to fight their hated enemies, the Knights of the Vale. He looks them in the eye and boasts that his father's smiths literally produce better steel as waste than the garbage they are holding.
And boom, that strikes a nerve. Gunthor immediately halts Shagga's violence. He is finally hooked by the promise of the one tangible thing his people desperately need to change their miserable circumstances: high-quality weaponry. Gunthor asks exactly what Tyrion can provide, basically begging him for swords, lances, and mail.
Then, in a breathtaking final move, smiling right in the face of death, Tyrion executes step 3. He realizes that offering them just weapons is thinking way too small. He aligns his own immediate need for an army with their deepest, multi-generational desire. He doesn't just offer survival tools, he offers them the entire kingdom they despise, promising them the Vale of Arryn itself.
It is an absolute masterclass in negotiation. In the span of a single conversation, Tyrion went from a dead man with a goat to the leader of a heavily armed, ruthless mountain clan army. He manipulated his bodyguard's greed, leveraged his own horrific trauma into a will to live, and identified his enemy's deepest desires to buy his life.
But as we reflect on this brilliant survival tactic, it leaves us with a pretty chilling final thought. Just how much chaos is this single campfire deal going to unleash on the world? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.